Yep, they got me again. Netflix just shut me off again. So can I even... So I guess I can't point it at the TV any longer. We'll see if they'll get it. I'll get flagged for just the sound. Yeah, hey Maz, Netflix shut me off again. So we're still on episode 7 and 9 minutes and 19 seconds in. It's 6:53 and I'll hit play at 6:55. I took a screenshot. Let me see if I can get it posted in here. Yeah, the Facebook Live has a time limit of 4 hours. And so it shut me off at 4 hours. But now, sorry, I'm trying to, can I post a picture in here? I guess I can't. So it cut me off at 4 hours, but it didn't say anything like I was having a problem with Netflix. But now it says, hold on. I just want to show you the picture. Picture. So here's what popped up on my phone that I'm posting in Gossip so you can see. 1 minute and I'm going to hit play again. And at 9 minutes and 19 seconds. Now I just have this pointed at me and not the TV screen. Where did I set the remote again? I keep doing that. Oh, 6:55. I'm hitting play. 9 minutes, 19 seconds.
What are we doing, Judge?
We're testing.
Is this an experiment in front of the jury? If it is, then we need to replicate the
Here.
conditions.
Should I wear this? Don't look at me.
That's fine. We'll hold off on that. The bookcase hasn't come in, so I don't know if they intend to introduce it or not, but it's not here.
This is like, whoa, way close.
Lieutenant Light, November 8th was at least your third
Yep, Jack, I got disconnected
into
again.
Mr. Avery's bedroom. Searching it, right?
That's correct.
Now, you had been the first one to empty out that bookcase?
No, sir.
Okay, but you know that somebody searched it on November 5.
Yes, sir.
How about on November 8th? Do you know whether Mr. Colburn took all of the stuff out of the bookcase?
All the magazines and the photos and that type of thing were taken out of the bookcase.
So that he could look in the bookcase.
I suppose.
And did you get a chance to look into the bookcase when it was empty of its contents?
I glanced in there. I didn't really take a hard look in there, no, sir.
Oh,
You didn't see a
Somebody
blue
else put
lanyard and
money in
a
here.
black clasp and the Toyota key in the back of that bookcase, did you?
No, sir, I did not.
It's not enough to just get the key. He wants Avery's DNA on that. And so he is going to wait until it is the right time. And there is a Calumet deputy with him on all of these searches.
Yes, there is
Somewhere nearby, and he was just waiting for the right time when he could do it.
That key does not fall from, in between the backboard and the frame of
And
that little
find
bookcase.
his way underneath a pair of slippers.
Yeah, it just does, things fall straight down thanks to gravity. It's,
And if we get them thinking, look,
no, I can't see
if the
who
guy
was
is
on.
capable of planting a key, who's to say he's not capable of planting
well,
a
it's
bribe?
easy.
Yeah.
Well, one's easier for
That's easy. The bottom line is, they knew their boss had just recused the department and turned over lead authority in this investigation to the Navy Department because of that lawsuit. They were deposed in the lawsuit. They didn't tell.
Yeah, somebody
Yeah.
called the cops on our PJ
Okay.
party. I thought about, should I put on pajamas?
You volunteered
Lank
to
is
be
on
one of
right
the
now.
officers who searched Stephen Avery's residence.
We were asked to assist in searching residences, yes.
Well, all right. You've given testimony about that very topic before.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall being asked this question, and did you give this answer? So you volunteered to be one of the officers who searched Stephen Avery's residence. Your answer, yes, sir. Was that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Colburn also volunteered to be one of the searchers of Stephen Avery's residence.
Yes, sir, I believe so.
And you didn't mention that you'd been deposed 3,
Michelle's in
4
Christmas
weeks earlier
PJs.
to Special Agent Fassbender.
That's correct, sir.
You didn't mention it to Investigator
I'm in a
Mark
t-shirt and
That's
sweatpants
correct.
because
Did
my
you tell
errand
Sheriff
today was
Pogba
going for a
that
mani
you'd been
pedi.
deposed?
No, sir.
That's my dress comfort.
Without you telling them, there's really no way they would have known about it, would they have?
No, sir.
Would it have been a little bit fairer to Mr. Fassbender if you had given him this information so that he, as one of the 2 lead investigators, could have considered it?
Had I thought of it, yes, sir.
Would it have been fair to give that to Mr. Uyghur or Sheriff Pogba?
Same answer, yes, sir.
And before you went rummaging through Stephen Avery's bedroom, once,
Chrissy.
twice, 3 times, whatever it was, for hours,
7 p.m. here,
would it
man.
have been fairer to Stephen Avery if someone other than a person who had been deposed in his lawsuit had done that search?
No, sir, I don't think it would have been.
At least around here, maybe not in Milwaukee, maybe not in Brookfield, maybe not in Madison, but around these parts, if you're gonna suggest that a cop is crooked, you're gonna suggest that a cop committed
Alex,
crimes,
what isn't working?
then you better have something other than your elbows on the table. And in this case, to suggest that these police officers planted evidence with nothing.
He gets so
that is, with
upset.
not one shred, at least anything that I've seen.
Don't accuse
that
the
approaches
police.
Evidence,
I'm
I think
angry.
is absolutely deplorable.
No, you're the deplorable.
I'm in the same situation that I was before. There's a couple of them. One are male. The other one's dead.
Yeah, but do you really want to stare at me?
And I go through this over and over. Sometimes I just wonder, I don't know. It's just hard to take all in, you know.
You may be seated. Mr. Kratz, at this time you may resume your questioning.
Sergeant Colburn, that first day, that is the first day of the missing persons investigation, the 3rd of November, after Mr. Wiegert asked for your help, did you have any conversation with Stephen Avery at that time?
Yes, I did. I asked him if Teresa Hallbuck had come out to
Don't
their
pick my nose.
property
Yeah.
to photograph a vehicle that they were selling.
Mr. Avery have a response for you?
He said that she was taking some pictures of a van that his sister was selling. And I asked Mr.
Oh, what
Avery
minute mark am I
if
at?
she had said where she was
Where did I put
going.
my remote again?
And he said, I never talked to her. She was only here 5 or 10 minutes and she left.
That he never talked to you?
16:11.
That's what he told me. He never talked to her.
And now I might have thrown people off by me having to pause real
Let's
quick
move
to
on
see
then
where I
to
was at.
the 8th of
Have I written
November.
letters
Did
to
you
both
have
of them? Yes, I
occasion
haven't.
To search
To both.
Stephen
And I've talked to
Avery's
both on the phone.
bedroom.
Yes, sir.
Who did you enter that bedroom
But I don't
with?
talk to either anymore.
Deputy Chaharsky and Lieutenant Link.
Oh my God, I look horrible.
In performing that search, did you move or manipulate this piece of furniture?
Well, I'll be the first to admit
I'll give
I
you something better to
handled
look
it
at.
rather roughly, twisting it, shaking it, pulling it.
Sergeant, did you see this image on
Right.
the 8th of November?
Yes, I was searching the desk here. Deputy
Is that better?
Chaharsky was sitting on the bed filling out paperwork. Lieutenant Link said something to the effect of, there's a key on the floor here.
Let me ask you, Sergeant Colburn, did either yourself, Lieutenant Link, or Deputy Kaharski touch that key?
No, sir.
Why not?
I think all three of us knew at the same time that this was a very important piece of evidence, and, you know, none of us were gonna taint that.
Sergeant Colburn, you were asked, as I understand, as part of a civil lawsuit to provide what's called a deposition. Can you tell the jury what you were asked about?
In 1994 or 95, I had received.
I don't talk to Brendan
telephone
anymore
call when I was
because,
working in my capacity as a
Barb
corrections
doesn't want me to have
officer
any
in
contact with
Attleboro
him.
County Jail.
Stephen, I haven't heard from, and I'm assuming
himself
his
as a
niece is
detective
manipulating him.
And began telling me that somebody who had committed an assault in Manitowoc County was in their custody, and we may have somebody in our jail on that assault charge that may not have done it. I told this individual, you're probably going to want to speak to a detective, and I transferred the call to a detective.
Oh, really, Michelle? You've
That's
seen
it?
mad
That's your connection to
emojis?
Mr. Avery?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Sergeant Colburn. Do you even know whether that call was about Mr. Stephen Avery?
I used to run a
No,
haunted
sir.
house, so
Well, did that cause you enough embarrassment
I
and
got
enough
another one if you
angst
want.
that you obtained and planted blood so that it would be found and Mr. Avery would be wrongfully accused of a homicide case?
No, sir.
Have you ever planted any evidence against Mr. Avery?
I have to say that this is the first time my integrity has ever been questioned, and no, I have not.
That's all I have, Sergeant Colburn. Thank you.
This is the first time your integrity's been questioned.
As it applies to being a police officer, yes.
It's the
Okay.
first time his
It's
integrity
not the first time
has been
Mr.
called
Avery's
into
has been,
question.
so I have some questions for you. November 3, 2005.
how often does Stephen
when
call me?
you
Not very
learned
often.
Teresa Hallbach was missing.
He
was
called
just
me
3
right
weeks
before
after
Making
your
Murder 2
deposition
came
in
out, and then he
Stephen
called me
Avery's
right
lawsuit.
after. So that's the only
Yes,
time
sir.
he's called me.
As shift commander, you
Roll.
could have assigned
Close
anyone
together.
in road
Other than that,
patrol
it could be months
to
in
go out
between.
to
And now I
the
don't
address
think I'll be
on
hearing
Beaver
from him
Road.
at all.
Yes,
You chose to do it yourself.
yes,
Did you go alone?
yes, I did.
When, sir,
Ah.
did you first make a written report of anything having to do with the November 3, 2005 meeting with Mr. Avery?
June of '06, I believe.
That is, it was almost
always find
8
it
months
annoying how he
after
always
that
has to
conversation
turn and
with Stephen
talk
Avery,
into the
first
microphone.
conversation with him in this investigation, that you wrote down what you say he said to you back on November 3.
Yes, sir.
The Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department had, by their own admission,
I
in fact,
felt
they're the
that,
first one that brought it up, that there
Strang
was a
was
conflict
this
of
close
interest
to
there,
getting cold.
and a conflict of
really
interest
looked
in the
like, oh, he's
investigation
gonna
of
crack.
the crime is probably the most serious violation any investigating agency can make, because it brings into question their credibility and actions throughout the case. If I had to guess, I would say that they declared it a conflict of interest to dot the I's and cross the T's. They didn't implement the procedure that would follow a conflict of interest, and that is quite simply to totally back off. They continued their active role in the investigation. They developed most of the evidence, and when they took on that role that they shouldn't have, they also committed themselves to proving Stephen Avery had committed the crime.
So you're in the house on November 5,
Watching
November 6,
Making a Murderer,
November
Part
7,
1, Episode
November 8.
7.
True?
Yes, sir.
There was no time that you went into Mr. Avery's home when you were not also with Lieutenant Lenk.
No, sir.
No time you went in Mr. Avery's garage when Lieutenant Lenk was not also with you.
Not that I recall.
This case you would describe as the largest investigation in which you personally
Jessica, it's
participated as
because
a law enforcement officer.
Carla and
Yes,
Carla's
sir.
minions are
Law
telling
enforcement
him that
agencies involved
I am
have
preventing
generated
the family
thousands of
from
pages
his
of
mom
police reports.
from getting money.
Yes, sir.
Your total contribution
And that's not what I'm
Is
doing at all.
what, a
I'm
little
trying to
bit
prevent
under
the
half a
family from
page?
profiting off of Stephen.
Correct.
The report that you filed makes no mention of the Toyota key.
That's correct, sir.
Were there
Oh,
things that you
Julie.
did not want to commit to paper?
My haunted
The
house was the
report?
longest
No,
consecutively
sir.
running haunted house in the country. It started in
While we're
1971.
on Stephen Avery.
This was the
and your
second
reports
year we
about
didn't
him,
have it. Oh, it
that
kills
phone
me.
call.
I've
The
got,
phone call
actually,
where
that's what I'll
a
be doing this
detective from
weekend,
another
is
law
going through
enforcement
my haunted
agency
house
told you you may
trailer
have the wrong guy in
and
jail.
taking out the
That
stuff
one?
I'm gonna keep,
Yes, sir.
and we're
Did you ever write a
trashing
report about
it.
that?
We've had them sitting for 2
No, I
years.
did not, sir.
Well, actually you did, didn't you?
You did.
It was about 8 years later, wasn't it?
I wrote a statement on it, yes, sir.
You wrote that statement
Write
in
a statement
2003,
8 years
the
later.
day after Stephen Avery finally walked out of prison, didn't you?
I don't know what day Steve was released from prison, but I wrote the statement in 2003.
That's all I have.
Sergeant Colburn, back in 1994 or 95, if you would have written a report, what would it have been about?
I don't know what it would have been about. If I wrote a report about every call that came in, I would spend my whole day writing reports.
That's all the redirect I have of this witness. Thank you very much, Sergeant.
Well, that's
Mr.
part of your
Frank?
job. You have to write
How many
reports,
calls
and they
have you
suck.
ever gotten from
Jeff,
another
I've only
police
talked to
officer suggesting
Kathleen
you
once
had the
in
wrong guy
person.
jail?
Most of my communication with her is by
I don't
email.
know. I can't recall any others.
That's all I have.
Sergeant Colburn was up there for quite some time today. This is a gentleman who I think has been a law enforcement officer for 13 years. He puts on a uniform, a badge, and a gun every day and goes to work and tries to do his best. We're all here. We're putting this on TV. This guy's gonna go home tonight and listen to his son maybe cry about how everybody at school made fun of him because his dad's a bad cop.
This was a hard day, and there have been some hard days for Sergeant Colburn.
I'm sorry, just
But-
because somebody is a police officer
Any-
doesn't mean they are deserved any more respect than anybody
Any
else.
burden
Respect is earned,
that he's
not
bearing
given.
pales in comparison to what the state of Wisconsin and the
Yes.
people working for it have inflicted on Stephen Avery and his family.
Bingo.
And right now, Stephen Avery needs Jerry Buting and Dean Strang and anybody out there who believes in him badly. We do believe in him. We are willing to do hard things to advance his cause. And he's been saying since November 2005 that someone must have planted his blood if it's in that car.
What my question is, though, is that if you were going to put somebody on the stand and accuse that person of a conspiracy, Mr. Kratz kind of made it sound like you should be able to offer some proof that this planting actually took place.
You're hearing the evidence
Yeah,
of the conspiracy.
exactly, Christy. Boo-hoo,
And I've
Daddy's a
sat
bad
in many a
cop.
federal courtroom and heard federal prosecutors prove a conspiracy on less than we've
Boo-hoo,
heard already
Stephen's kids didn't
here,
get to have a
and
father
will
in their
hear by
life.
the end of this trial, I think.
The way this case is coming in at this point is much better for the defense than I would have thought. Much better. Every single day, we're reminding them about Manitowoc's continued involvement, about bias in the investigation.
Sergeant Orth, were you the first law enforcement officer that was on the Avery property itself?
Correct.
Where was it that you stopped your vehicle?
I stopped the vehicle right where Pamela and Nicole Sturm were standing. They were positioned right around this area, and they were directing my attention to this row of vehicles.
Do you recall about what time you arrived at that scene?
Approximately 10:59 hours. 10:59 a.m.
Sergeant Orth, from your arrival, would you have been in a constant position to determine whether any law enforcement officer or citizen entered or disturbed that vehicle?
No police officer or citizen approached or touched that RAV4.
I'm going to come right out and ask you, did you see a gentleman who works
Boy,
for your
that sounds
department named
familiar. I'm
Lieutenant
just going to
Jim
come
Lynn?
right out and ask you.
I did not see him.
Did you see a gentleman who works for your department named Andrew Colburn?
No, I did not see him.
It's all good at this witness, Jones.
You didn't actually start preparing a log of anybody coming to and from that scene of the RAV4 until 2:45, isn't that right?
As soon as I stood behind the vehicle approximately 30 feet, I used a small notepad out of my shirt pocket. That was a rough log that I started. When I proceeded back to the staging area is where I prepared a final log, which is probably what you're referring to.
All right, if you would just read at what you say for the entry that says 14:45 hours, that is 2:45, is it not?
Correct.
Read the last sentence.
I started a log to document the names of individuals approaching the immediate area around the vehicle.
Okay, I started a log, right?
Correct.
Is there any place earlier in your report where you mentioned that you ever took any notes anywhere else about who was coming and going other than this entry right here that it says it's 2:45 p.m.?
No, my rough field notes is when I started previously.
You still have those?
No, I do not.
So we just have to rely on your memory, is that right?
As far as the time of breaks and the time I approached?
And who came and went, right?
Correct.
When I got there on Saturday, ultimately I got down to by the car crusher about 2:25, I think it was, and the officers that were staged there, I told them, or I recommended that they start a log.
Agent Fossbender, any time after 2 p.m., did you see any law enforcement officer or citizen tamper with that RAV4 vehicle?
No.
Is that important to you?
Yes.
Why?
Because that's probably right now our main piece of evidence in this case.
Did it cause you concern that for 4 hours, the major piece of evidence in this case was under the control of the very department that had already been determined to have a conflict of interest in this case?
No, it didn't. I knew that officers were on that scene, protecting that scene.
Well, did you suggest that Manitowoc back off and that the Calumet deputy take over? Was that part of your decision?
I don't believe so. It happened, but I don't believe that was specifically my decision.
So it was just coincidental that it happened around the time you arrived?
Oh, probably, yes.
All right. And in fact, you were trying to shape things up a bit and make sure that logs were taken and all of that when you arrived.
I suggested a log be kept.
And that's good police practice to do that, right?
Certainly.
You then have a record of everybody who comes and goes, right?
Correct.
Even the top dog sheriff has to sign a log like this, right?
You should, yes. If you're going by that checkpoint, yes.
Well, unless you were eluding the checkpoint in some way, you would really have to sign that, wouldn't you?
Correct.
All right, so the log shows that Lieutenant Link signed out at 10:41 p.m. on Saturday, November 5th, correct?
Yes, if this is all November 5th, yes.
Okay. Well, if you take a minute and look through there and show me where Lieutenant Link signed in.
Yep, Deborah, I'm looking right at you.
Do you see an entry that Lieutenant Link signed in anywhere on that log on November 5th?
No, sir, I did not.
Theoretically, a trial is supposed to be about the day your sister died, how she died, and who did it. Yet it seems as though the state is spending an inordinate amount of time, especially with law enforcement officers, not talking about that,
Cecilia
had
says,
access
at this
to
point,
what
with all the
was
lack
seen
of
to
evidence and the new
vehicle.
stuff in
Are you
MAM2, I
concerned
can't help
that
but question Teresa's
each
family.
witness,
Why do they
this
not want the
window
truth?
of
Yes, I know
reasonable doubt
people
keeps
say
getting
they've
wider
been
and
duped and they
wider?
are blind because of their
No,
laws,
I'm
but
not
that doesn't
concerned at
stop
all.
common
No.
sense.
I think it's a hand that's kind of
Just-
forced upon the
don't.
prosecution team.
I agree with you.
That's kind of my belief. So
I
not
would want to
concerned
know
at
the
all.
truth.
As you sit here today, Lieutenant Link, do you recall about what time you arrived at that scene?
It was just shortly after 2 o'clock, 2:05.
Now, when you got to the scene, Avery salvage scene, had there been any kind of login or check-in procedure put in place yet?
I don't recall a login at that point.
Well, anything that pisses off the guilters is good for me.
Lieutenant Link, any time on the 5th of November, did you have any contact with Teresa Hallbach's SUV?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you have any contact with her SUV on the 4th of November or the 3rd of November, or in fact, any time there before?
I couldn't
No,
either,
sir, I did
Maz.
not.
Lieutenant Link, did
I would
you
want the truth.
ever obtain any blood from the clerk's office, or did you obtain any blood from any location and plant it anywhere in Teresa
Thank
Hallbach's
you,
vehicle,
Vicky.
or anywhere where it could be found as part of this investigation?
No, sir, definitely not.
Now, what you testified on direct examination was that you arrived at the Avery salvage property just shortly after 2:05 or something like that.
Yes, sir.
If you arrived at about 2:05, then that may have been before anyone started keeping a log.
That's correct.
Under those circumstances, the fact that you didn't sign in would not look strange or odd.
No, sir.
The
Oh, that scared me all of a
subject
sudden.
of when
Something
you
popped up on my
arrived
phone and I
at
thought it
the
was going to be the
Avery property
Netflix
that day
thing again because I've been seeing it first on my
has come
phone.
up before in this case, hasn't it?
Yes, sir.
You gave testimony under oath back on August 9, 2006.
I believe that was the date, yes, sir.
Now, the oath, of course, was the same you took today.
Correct.
And were you asked on that occasion, and did you in fact arrive at the Avery property? Your answer, yes. Question, do you know what time? Answer, I'm not sure of the exact time, somewhere 6:30 or 7 that evening. I'm not positive. Were you asked those questions, and did you give those answers?
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, if you had arrived at 6:30 or 7, it would be a little hard to explain why you're not on the log signing in, would it?
Yes, it would.
My
Thank you,
blood
Maz.
starts to boil when this defense, I hear this, that these police officers, these good, solid citizens, good, decent men, are accused of planting this evidence. It starts to get my blood boiling.
They can get up here and
I don't
act
care
as
what
offended
gets
as they
your
want,
blood boiling.
as often as they want. But they're presenting this case, the way it was done, who it was done by, who was not excluded from it, when the public was told
He's getting
that
bent.
Manitowoc was not involved. They sat up here at press conferences and told you Manitowoc was not involved in this investigation, when in fact now we know they were, and that they were 4 months later. You gotta wonder, what's going on?
Right, Lily. Somebody part of that know the Hallback family have to have watched this. Link's name is literally everywhere.
If Link was involved with the transmittal of evidence in 2002, then he probably would have known that this box of Stephen Avery's blood was in that case file. And he would therefore have known in October and November of 2005, when the Hallbach vehicle was discovered on November 5th, he would have known that there was a source of Stephen Avery's blood available in the clerk's office.
This is a
I had
picture that
popcorn
shows
for
the
lunch.
file in the clerk's office.
Correct.
And the file actually has the exhibits in it as well as the paper documents, right?
Correct. All the exhibits are underneath all the, I think all the paper was pretty much at the top. I mean, and when people go through it, it doesn't necessarily end up back in that same condition. And I think when it was kept over on the side filing cabinet, I tried to level things out too, so the cover could the flaps could come over, because I didn't think that was a very secure.
Sure. But there is that, see that foam board exhibit in the background?
Right, and that would probably stick out no matter where, because it was too big for the box.
So the box wouldn't close.
Right.
Okay. No matter what you did.
Cecilia, that's
All right.
what people
Now,
accuse me of. They
it would be
think
fair
I'm
to
just
say
here
that the
because I
presence
want
of
the attention.
Sheriff's deputies inside
This doesn't
the
help
interior
with me
part
doing
of that
these things.
clerk's
Of everybody,
office
look
is
at me,
not
look at
that
me.
unusual an event, right?
That's correct.
Now, in addition, the sheriff's department has access to the clerk's office with master keys. Isn't that right?
The security bailiffs would.
Okay. A master key would allow entry to the inner part of the clerk's office, right?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't understand the
And that would
blood
include after hours
in
on
the RAV4.
weekends or in the
because
evenings,
where
right?
that cut is on his finger.
Correct.
When you're turning ignition, does your hand ever touch the car when you do that?
Yeah, people ain't gonna get away with everything. No. That's why Kraft is worried about it. You know, he's scared now. Yeah. Oh, why would he be?
Dolores, how's Stephen doing? How is he doing? Can you comment?
Look at Dolores getting her. I mean, she's just surrounded by them. She's walking through the snow, bright light in her face.
How are his spirits? Talk about in this 20-minute period you were there for.
They really are a pariah.
Anything you'd like to say?
And somebody just called him Brandon.
When blood is taken for a blood sample or blood tests, it's put in a purple top tube. It has a preservative to keep it from spoiling, and that's a chemical called EDTA.
This whole part,
We do not have EDTA in our own blood.
you almost want to just skip
If you
over
find it
because
in
we
a
know this
stain,
blood isn't
the
anything at
argument
this
is,
point.
must be
I
because the blood
understand
was
them
planted.
getting
And so
on it because,
I
like,
looked
when I
into
watched
could
Making a
we
Murder
test
for the first time, I
the
was like, oh my
stains in
god, that
RAV4
was like a
to try
big
and
gotcha
begin kind of
moment.
scientifically
But we know
valid
now that blood's
conclusion
not the
about
stuff
whether
that
or
was
not
planted and all that.
The blood stain could have come from a tube of preserved blood as opposed to an actively bleeding person. And there was nobody who did those tests anymore. But then the state somehow managed to get the FBI to create such a test and have it ready sometime in the middle of the trial.
But it's funny how the state rushed that whole
How are you going to deal with the
ETA
issue
testing.
that in December you were told this
That it
is
was
going
only
to take
done,
4 to 6
right,
months,
once
which would
before
have
for
been
the
way
OJ
too late
case or something
to
like
present
that?
at this trial, and then all of a sudden they got it done in a couple of days.
Well, it wasn't a couple of days. I think, I don't see it as a problem.
Of course you don't see it as a problem.
Okay? Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
This is a bit speculative, but had the FBI not been able to expedite that testing so quick, would the trial have just gone on without these test results?
Yes. Now, can I
Thanks, Norm.
go?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, because I'm chomping at the bit.
All right.
I don't know why.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. You know, this case, as unusual as it has been already, has now
Hey, I'm Marzan.
become even more unusual and unique because it's the first and only time anywhere in the country where an expert is being allowed to express an opinion about EDTA being on a bloodstain or not when there's a challenge. The only other time it's ever come in at all was the OJ case. and both sides agreed to it. Here, this judge is the first judge who's ever ruled this kind of test to be admissible.
But the jury is still going to hear these results.
Yes, they are, and that's unfortunate. We'll do our best to explain to the jury why they shouldn't be relied upon. We'll see what happens on that.
I always get my chances where, I'm going to get out, and then this stuff comes, and I can just see that they're trying to do their damnedest to keep me in. So, it's scary. Come down to it.
Dr. LeBeau, did you know that this was a case that involved an allegation of police planting evidence?
Yes, I did.
Why would a case such as that, an allegation of law enforcement officers planting evidence, be of a concern to the FBI?
Well, one of the areas that the FBI is responsible for investigating in this country is crimes of public corruption. If an individual is truly in that political position or in a law enforcement position,
hot shower,
and they
clean PJs.
are doing something illegal that erodes the public's trust in that agency or that individual. And we would want that, certainly, that individual out of that office or off the street.
Now I'd like to ask you, Doctor, what was your thought process in approaching this case that was sent to you?
There's going to be one or two scenarios when you're dealing with the notion that blood was planted.
Here's what
from
I'm
the
ordering for the
ETA
homeless. That's
to-
what I've been working on while
First
listening to
scenario
this
is that
stuff.
if you find the presence of
Getting
EDTA
40
on the
drawstring
bloodstain,
waterproof
then that's an indication
bags.
that blood came from a tube,
And
such as purple
then,
top
well,
tube.
there's 50, but
The other
I'm trying to get
scenario
40 of them.
is that you do not
Mylar
find
emergency
EDTA,
response blanket.
and that would then suggest that the blood came from
40
active bleeding, not from
rain
an EDTA
ponchos.
preserved tube.
Were you able to reach a conclusion concerning
40
the presence
hand
of
warmers.
EDTA on the blood swabs that
And then
you
it's a
tested from
pack of
Teresa
48
Hallbach's
socks.
Rat
Let's say they're
4
going to
that
get
was sent
here
to you.
Friday the 14th
Yes,
or
sir. We
through
were
Wednesday the
not able to
19th, and we're
identify
supposed to be
any
going this
indication of the
or
presence of
that
EDTA
weekend, the
in
Saturday.
any
So hopefully it
response
gets
that
here in
was
time.
submitted to our laboratory and
$226.
collected from the RAV4.
Do you have an opinion
Oh,
to
and I
a
didn't get
reasonable
gloves.
degree of scientific
Oh,
certainty
maybe somebody else will get gloves.
whether the blood stains from Teresa Hallbach's RAV4 that you tested came from the vial of blood of Stephen Avery that was in the Manitowoc County Clerk of Court's office?
It's my opinion that the blood stains that were collected from the RAV4 could not have come from the EDTA tube that was provided to us in this
Where are
case.
we at? We are on episode 7.
You think this is vindication?
Yes, I clearly believe it's vindication. You know, here are two officers who are accused of something just terrible. That's terrible that they would plant evidence and try and frame someone.
That's
and
terrible.
basically
They already did it
ignore
one other
whoever
time.
it may have been that.
Oh, that's so
murdered
annoying.
Teresa
Oh,
Hallbach.
this is terrible.
I mean,
They
what
did
an
it.
awful thing to do.
They framed him the
that would
first
reach
time.
The family of Teresa
Literally.
Hallbach, Teresa Hallbach.
Couché, the pencil,
It's just
framed
a
him.
dastardly thing to think about or even conceive. It's clear vindication, and it's just something welcome to all of the law enforcement community, because it's such a despicable allegation. That's all I can say. And
That's
I think
such a
that this testing
despicable allegation.
cleared that issue
Well,
up and
It's a
cleared it up,
despicable
in a very, very
thing that
strong
you've done to Stephen Avery and Brendan.
Look how quickly they got the FBI to retool their instruments, recalibrate everything, do these internal validation studies they're going to claim, and get results within a matter of weeks, a few weeks, on a test that they haven't done for 10 years. And yet, the crime lab has, in 2002, evidence in its lab that Stephen Avery is innocent, and it sits for a year before it gets tested. It shows the imbalance between the individual and the power of the government, the full force of which they're trying to bring to bear on this man. Why? And why in this case? because we have accused, and the evidence suspiciously points to, framing by one of them. And when you do that, you do so at your peril, as the state would say. You know? Hopefully, though, the jury's going to see that there's this imbalance in the way that they're prosecuting this case and investigating this case. And I think what's going on here, it's not like they think they are framing an innocent man. But they are. They think he's guilty. And they're doing whatever they can, to twist the evidence or create a case that supports that. You testified about why the FBI would have any interest in this case in the first place. Recall that?
Yes, I do.
You testified that one of the FBI's concerns was that if there's a corrupt cop on the street doing something illegal, and certainly planting evidence to frame somebody would be illegal, right? Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. And that one of the functions of the FBI was to ferret out bad cops like that, right?
Generally, that's what yes.
Okay.
Generally, that's what I
Okay.
say. Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 479. Would you read the sentence on top of page 2? It discusses the purpose of this request for your services.
The purpose of this request is to establish the presence of EDTA in the vial of blood, thereby eliminating the allegation that this vial was used to plant evidence.
Okay. Can you show me anywhere in there where that request says our purpose is also to find out if there might be any evidence that there's a corrupt cop in Manitowoc County?
Well, I don't see anything of that nature.
Is homicide of a citizen in the state of Wisconsin a federal crime?
No, sir, it's not.
Okay. Is mutilation of corpse in the state of Wisconsin a federal crime?
No.
Okay. So, the purpose of you getting your federal agency involved in this state crime was to eliminate the allegation that this vial was used to plant evidence. Isn't that true?
No, sir. If I can elaborate, I'd be happy to explain.
You can elaborate later, sir. You only tested 3 swabs that were reported to have been found in the Teresa Halbach vehicle, right?
That's correct.
Do you know how many other stains were also found in that vehicle?
No, I don't.
Your opinion that there's no EDTA in the swabs from the Halbach vehicle then is limited to the 3 swabs that were presented to you, isn't that right?
Could you repeat that?
You expressed an opinion a little more broadly than perhaps you intended to, I believe, which was that the bloodstains in the Halbach vehicle could not have come from the purple vial that you tested, right?
That's correct.
But you're actually referring only to the 3 stained swabs that you tested, correct?
No, I believe my original testimony is what I meant.
Are you telling me right now that even though you never tested 3 other swabs of separate bloodstains found elsewhere in the RAV4 vehicle, that you're willing to express an opinion that none of those 3 swabs had EDTA either?
I believe that to be true within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to know how
You
far
guys
you
keep
were
getting
going to go.
booted. I'm not booted so far. Knock on wood.
The issue with this procedure is not whether or not it's a valid result if you are actually detecting EDTA. This is a good method. If the results end up that you detect EDTA,
See,
and
this
you
whole section I just
identify
don't care about
EDTA,
because I know.
that's a good.
Again,
good
they're
indication
calling,
that
you know,
EDTA
looking
was
into that
present
blood,
in
but we know now
The problem really occurs
that blood didn't
when
do
EDTA
anything.
is not detected
Or, you know,
in the
that's
blood stain.
not what was used
And
against
the
Stephen.
problem in that regard is From
So I
this
just
method,
kinda tuned it
I
out
don't know
now.
whether that's simply because they didn't detect it or because it wasn't there. I can't tell the difference between those two for this method. I don't know really what their method detection limit is. So I don't know whether they didn't see it or it wasn't there.
And looking at the data that is available in the stack, the validation tests that were done and those sorts of things, is there any indication that the FBI ever found out what the actual detection limit or method detection limit would be for this kind of a test?
No, there's no such indication in these data.
And so from this data, can you express any opinion about whether the 3 stains examined by Mr. LeBeau could have come from the blood sample, the blood tube Q49 that was also examined?
It's quite possible that those blood swabs could have come from Mr. Avery's blood tube, but simply not been detectable by the laboratory.
So even having gone through this test, is it possible that EDTA is or was in those 3 RAV4 stains?
Yes.
What about the 3 swabs from the RAV that were not tested by Mr. LeBeau? Can any conclusion be drawn on that?
I'm an analytical chemist. I'm not in the business of just guessing what's in samples. We have to test samples to decide what's in them.
So, can you conclude then that
Or you just got
any of the
knocked off?
RAV4 stains that were examined by the FBI could not have come from the blood tube that contained Mr. Avery's blood?
I can't conclude that.
If we can convince them of the major points, then as long as there's a reasonable hypothesis, as the jury instruction says, then I think we've got a chance to convince them. All this, of course, assumes that we end up with 12 people who really are unbiased and impartial,
Hey, Tori.
despite the months of publicity that they've had. And
It's asking a lot of human beings.
this case, could have been a futile exercise for the last month if we ended up with people that can't do that. And there's just no way of knowing.
The false imprisonment count here is the last vestige of the unsupported, inaccurate, uncorroborated claims of Brendan Dassey that were broadcast by agents of the state to everyone who had a TV turned on,
That's the same one.
that threatened the right to a fair trial.
Sorry, I'm posting.
That
Somebody
threatened
asked
the
about
right to have a jury
sending
drawn
Stephen
from the
Christmas
venue in
cards,
which
so I'm
this
posting
crime
his
was
address.
charged, and that curled the hair of anyone who listened to the description of a naked woman manacled to a bed, sexually assaulted, stabbed, throat cut, strangled when the slashing of her throat didn't kill her, and then only later a corpse shot 11 times. That was the story. That was the horror story that was presented. And the false imprisonment charge, as I say, is the last vestige of that horror story. It was a fable, an ugly, horrific fable, but a fable all the same belied by the physical evidence and by the testimony in the state's own case in chief. So I'm asking the court to, in a sense, ratify what the state has already done, which is the abandonment of this charge and the abandonment of the theory that Brendan Dassey had anything to do with this, or that the story that Brendan Dassey told under police questioning has any veracity, corroboration, or foothold in the evidence presented at this trial.
During voir dire, a number of jurors indicated they were at least somewhat familiar with the case against Brenda Dassey. To submit this charge to the jury would, the court believes, invite the jury to fill in the blanks, if you will, by what they might otherwise remember about allegations that have not been supported by evidence in this case. The court concludes there
Yes,
is not
Chrissy, you
sufficient
can send them
evidence in the
Christmas
record
cards.
to support a jury finding of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt on the false imprisonment charge.
I just
And the
posted,
court
somebody
therefore
asked
grants
about
the
Stephen.
defendant's motion
Actually,
to
I could go
dismiss
there and
that
tell you how you
charge.
could send to Brendan too.
It's your motion hearings this
That's
morning
bad.
on a litany of issues that have already gone before the jury. How do you unring that bell with the jury?
In one way, we're back to February 28, 2006. We're back to the 3 counts Steve faced originally. And in another way, we can never be back to February 28, 2006, because March 1 and March 2, 2006 happened with the state's press conferences and all of the ugly and, as it turns out, untrue things that were said publicly against our client since then. So is it nice to see the last vestige of those allegations fall away? Sure. And am I gloating over it? No, because they never should have been there in the first place.
Only on my iPad and my phone.
You can move the microphone over to Mr. Avery then. Mr. Avery, do you understand that the decision whether to testify or not is yours to make?
Yes.
That means you can listen to your attorneys and listen to their advice, but ultimately it's your call. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Has anyone made any threats or promises to you to influence your decision?
No, they didn't.
Have you thoroughly discussed your decision with your attorneys?
Yes, I did.
And have you made a decision as to whether or not you wish to testify in this case?
Yes.
What is your decision?
And the decision is, I'm an innocent man, and there's no reason for me to testify. Everybody knows I'm innocent.
So you wish not to testify, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
So Steve Avery talked today. What was that like?
From what I've seen of him before, he likes to talk, so I think he probably would have liked to be up on the stand, but it's kind of counterintuitive. If he's innocent, he should go up on the stand and say, he has nothing to hide, so why isn't he up there? But yeah.
What do you know?
Same thing that's been going through my mind for 16 months. Everything I've heard him say hasn't been the truth. No different today. I think that he thinks he's been let out of prison once. He thinks it's probably going to happen again, but I don't think so.
Oh, he makes me so pissed.
All right, so that's it. That's the evidence. Now what? Well, now we argue it. And, you guys have the day off tomorrow. By and large, yeah.
Well, and you can never jump to the conclusions, period.
You guys started with
somebody
6
confessed, so
counts
they're
in
guilty. No,
We're down to 3 counts.
that's not the case. Oh, because they don't go
That's
on the
the good
stand,
news.
it
The
means
bad
they're
news
guilty.
is
No,
if we
doesn't
lose
mean it's
count
case.
nothing else matters. No. Nothing else matters. If we lose count 1,
Here's
he's going to
Carla
prison for
at
the
court
rest of his
again
life.
in a hoodie.
Barring winning on appeal or, testing of the EDTA later, but the sentence will be life in prison if we lose count 1.
All right, that's the end of 7. On to 8 we go.
can't find it. I thought it was over here. Maybe I came too fast, huh? Here. I did that when he was in prison. I was gonna raise fish. Me and Steve. That's why I took this building up. And I made those tanks. I made my own farms. I just wish that
Isn't that
you know,
sad?
he could.
The frickin' things on his hands.
There's nowhere that Stephen Avery will be able to go
when
and get
he's
his
coughed,
reputation
just
back
ridiculous.
if he wins this trial.
Really
He didn't
trying to make
commit
him
the
look
rape
like
he
an
did
animal.
18 years for. We know he didn't commit the rape. He spent 18 years in prison for. Where did he get his reputation back for that? He didn't. He never did. He never will here. So in some ways to be accused is to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. What you can hope to get is your liberty back. Eventually. That's all you can ever hope to get.
Here comes the haunting music. Reminds me of Paradise Lost, too. The, you know, music for that and the camera panning over. Oh, really, Christina? That sucks, because it's really good. Well, it's... Do you have access to HBO? Because Paradise Lost is on HBO on demand.
Reasonable doubts
Oh
are for
my god,
innocent
crats.
people.
They really should, like, do a warning. Sweaty, sweaty pig face. Coming up.
Let me turn for a moment to some of the evidence that's lacking that you would expect to find if Mr. Avery was really guilty. No blood spatter on the walls or the ceiling. No bloody trail of a body being carried out of that bedroom into the garage or into the burn pit. Nothing on the carpet, nothing on the back stoop, the deck, anywhere. No scratches on the headboard. No rope fibers on the head. Nothing that would indicate somebody restrained, struggling for their life, who was murdered in that bedroom.
Defense argued that there was no blood that was found in the trailer. Since Teresa wasn't killed in the trailer, there shouldn't be. But what was found in the trailer is extremely important. They found an Auto Trader magazine and a bill of sale. Teresa was in that trailer. She
No, she
was
wasn't.
in the trailer, but she was not killed.
Where is the proof she was
that
in the
trailer.
trailer? A bill of sale and an Auto Trader magazine does not mean she was in the trailer.
Teresa Halbach was killed in the garage. She was killed in Stephen Avery's garage.
Try to put
Well, that's
her
Raleigh
in
Johnson's
his house
garage.
or garage. Now, this is not blind testing. These agents are telling Ms. Culhane what they want. And this is November 11th. Well, here it is, March. She's working on this bullet fragment now, and she still has not found one item that links Teresa Halbach to Mr. Avery's house or garage. So she's got to feel some pressure. This is the biggest case of her career. It's the biggest case the crime lab's ever had. It's almost 5 months, and nothing's been found.
Physical evidence,
Well,
DNA
the
evidence,
zippers and the
the
Schmitz
eyewitness
had
testimony, the scientific evidence,
bill of sale and
Big
a
photo
magazine. Was
that
Teresa
Mr.
in their
Avery
house?
had, common sense, all point to one person.
This could be done by two
I'll
officers.
point to one
Really,
person.
officer.
Yet you prosecuted Brendan.
One officer who keeps coming up.
Yep.
Lieutenant Link.
I know. I tell you guys, I'm not the number person, but
1985 case just a couple of years earlier. Lieutenant Link, who shows up on November 5th without logging in. Lieutenant Link, who finds the magic key. Lieutenant Link, who 4 months later, 4 months after Manitowoc no longer is needed, with no legitimate reason, is back at that scene on March 1st, and what's found the next day? The magic bullet.
Magic bullet.
This isn't just two guys. It's Jim Link and it's Andy Colburn. Their livelihood, their reputations, their families, everything in their 20-plus years of law enforcement are on the line when some lawyer accuses them of misconduct. Not just any misconduct.
Some
but
lawyer
planting evidence in the murder
accuses them of
And this
misconduct.
vile planting defense is absolutely
Colborn
ludicrous. We only had
knew
one witness
they had
who
the wrong guy in the Penny
can tell you
Bernstein case, and he
that there
covered
was
it.
absolutely no way that vial of blood was used to plant.
Would Lieutenant Link lie? Would he lie? As a
Yep.
sworn law enforcement
Would he lie?
officer?
Yep.
Well, all I can tell you is he did twice, and you heard it. Here he says he arrives at 2 o'clock. When he's asked under oath before, it's 6:30 or 7. This isn't 15 minutes off, folks. It's under oath, and it's a difference of 4.5 or 5 hours. At that time of year,
Yep,
November
Miley, it's a marathon.
2005,
We're on
it's the
episode
difference
8.
between broad daylight and
It's
pitch
almost
black.
8 o'clock here my time, so chances are, yeah, we're gonna finish part 1 tonight,
He
and
was
then
under
sometime
oath.
next week we'll do part 2. As long as Netflix doesn't,
If and when police
Cut me off.
officers plant evidence, they are not doing it to frame an innocent man. They're doing it because they believe the man guilty. They're not doing it to frame an innocent man. They're doing it to ensure the conviction of someone they've decided is guilty.
You buy Mr. Strain's argument that they were trying to make sure that a guilty person was found guilty, then assigning accountability to the murder for Teresa Halbach shouldn't matter whether or not that key was planted.
shouldn't matter if the key's planted.
In other
It-
words,
it matters.
you set that aside and
Matters.
decide, is there enough other evidence, or is the key the only thing that points to Mr. Avery?
So he's basically admitting that the key
in the
was
big
planted.
picture,
So,
in the big scheme
Even if we
of
don't
things
use the
here,
key, we've got a ton
means
of other
very
evidence. No, you don't. You have nothing. Nothing.
We do
A
not
bullet with
and
chapstick
never
and paint
claim
and wood on it.
that the police killed Teresa Halbach. However, the person or persons who did knew exactly who the police would really want to blame.
Despite Mr. Buting standing up here saying, look folks, we're not saying that the cops killed Teresa Halbach. And what we're saying is that somebody else skillfully exploited law enforcement bias, as if there's somebody smart enough out there that could do that. But when you scrape one layer of this manure off of the topsoil, you'll realize that the cops had to kill her. Are you, as the jury, in order to find Mr. Avery not guilty, willing to say that your cops, that your Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputies, Lieutenant Link, Sergeant Colburn, came across a 25-year-old photographer,
This is not.
killed
This
her,
does not say that the cops are
mutilated
killed her.
burned her bones?
There's no proof she was
set up
mutilated.
and
There's no
framed
proof she
Mr.
was
Avery.
burned.
You've got to be willing to say that. You've got to make that leap.
That should have been tossed right there. Because one
You
doesn't
can
mean the other.
decide this case, if you choose, on the evidence in the courtroom. And only the evidence in the courtroom. You have the power to do that. So I ask you, please, give it your full and fair consideration. Do that critically here as citizens of Manitowoc County.
Citizens of
Where we
Manitowoc
stayed
County,
to pick a jury.
meaning 2 people on that
I
jury
don't
work
believe
for
it's a difficult
Manitowoc
decision,
Sheriff's Department.
because
Or
everything
are affiliated with
in this
people
case pointed
who are.
towards one person, towards one defendant.
One person, one
I'm
defendant.
thanking you at the conclusion of this case on behalf of the state of Wisconsin and urging you to follow the court's instructions, to follow the evidence in the case, and return verdicts of guilty. Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
Oh God, do I hate that guy.
Members of the jury, the time has now come when the great burden of reaching a just, fair, and conscientious decision of this case is to be thrown wholly
And I
upon
don't like
you,
when
the
people
jurors selected for this
make
important
juries
duty.
out to be such a big freaking deal. I've talked about this before, that I've served on a jury and the people in there were a bunch of idiots. And juries aren't given the complete information. You're hidden a lot of the facts.
This
So
jury,
you can't make an
if they just
educated
wanted to convict him,
decision.
They could. They could come back and say you're guilty, that's the end of it. You know, even though Kratz, in my estimation, did not answer a number of critical questions that I raised yesterday, he left them on the table. They may answer them. You know, they may be able to collectively go back and start talking about, well, now what about this? Why would her body be in the back of that Toyota RAV4 if you really burned her there? Maybe, and they may come up with something, and it may be completely speculative, or it may have
Why
some
would
basis in
Stephen
the
have
evidence.
put
I
her
don't
in the back of her own vehicle ever? It makes no sense for Stephen to put her in there if he didn't leave the property and did everything there in his bedroom and his garage. So you wouldn't be throwing her in the vehicle. That has never made any
The
sense.
defense has laid out. Reporting live in Chilton, Emily Matesic, Action 2 News.
Yeah? I missed it. Missed what? I was gonna watch Channel 2. What time? Well, it's after 4 o'clock now. Yeah? Yeah, they would've had something on there. Well, they'll have it on at 5 again.
Maz, I have no idea. It seems like it's very bizarre that it'd be one thing if he was prosecuting them both on the same exact thing, but he's prosecuting them on completely different scenarios. I don't know how that is legal.
She wants to on 5. That's what it sounded like I said. Yeah, I'm hoping next week for a verdict, not this week. No, I'd sooner have it next week. Yeah. That way they can think about all that. Yeah. Well, you figure they'll do it tomorrow too. You
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter
The
if you
jury
don't
has told
know
the judge
a
that
lot
they
about
want
U.S. law, because
We'll
our
wait
laws
until 5:30
just suck and don't
break
make
for
any
the night.
sense.
Go back to the hotel, rest, and start tomorrow.
Yeah.
You which means they don't think they're going to be done today. I think if they'd come back very quickly, it would be very bad for the defense. Because then it would just be like they were ready to convict him, just a matter of getting it over and, going through the formalities. But they're obviously debating something.
Just how many hours or days it'll take the jury to weigh all the testimony and evidence in the case is anyone's guess. Before the jury left the courtroom today, Judge Patrick Willis reminded them that it is their duty to render a just and true verdict. Live in Chilton, Becky DeVries, Fox 11 News.
Well, I try to answer your questions, man,
6
but
hours and counting. The
I
jury
don't
in
know
Stephen Avery's trial
a lot of the
continues to deliberate. Thanks for joining us. The case went to the jury yesterday afternoon.
But all the work it did was scrapped this morning after a juror was excused because of a family emergency. Action 2 News reporter Emily Matesi joins us live from Chilton with the latest there. Emily.
Well, Bill, that juror was actually excused last night, but we didn't find out about it.
I don't know what that would mean. Not so good.
so now this Richard Mahler, the juror that was dismissed,
Three options. Number one,
Well, Mr. Jury
all
says
kinds
not
of
guilty.
shadiness surrounding that too.
That he's innocent.
His
Vince and Diane, the
stepdaughter got
deliberations
in
are
some
now
car
back to
accident.
square
That
one.
the car
One of the
accident
jurors
itself
was
seems
dismissed
kind
a
of
little
weird.
after 9 o'clock
So it
last
almost
night
seems
because
like
of a
because
family
they knew Richard
emergency.
Mahler was
So an
going
alternate
to
juror had to be
stay
brought
with
into the
not
mix to
guilty,
complete the 12 jurors.
they did
And that means
something to make
everything
him
they
leave
talked
for
about
the
yesterday
family.
has to be
Yeah,
thrown
the
out, and
family
this jury has to
emergency.
start again from square one.
News that juror had been dismissed came after the jury had been deliberating for 4.5 hours yesterday. Keep in mind, they've also been sequestered now for 2 days. Under those circumstances, the judge decided that he would investigate for himself the seriousness of this family emergency. After a couple of phone calls, he concluded that the juror did indeed need to be dismissed, but that in turn created another potential problem. Should the deliberations continue with
Because
just
the car
11
accident
jurors,
was
which
something
according
like
to
a
the judge
car
was
all
an
of a
option.
sudden
Should a
stopped,
mistrial
so
be
she
declared,
rear-ended
or
them
should
or
an
they
alternate
rear-ended
juror
her.
be seated?
I can't
This was all up
remember.
to Stephen
And
Avery,
cops
and in
were
the
like
end,
there
he opted
instantly,
to have an
even though it
alternate
wouldn't have been
juror
enough
come
time
into the
for
jury
somebody
pool.
to have called for a cop to be there. It's all kinds of weird. Well, that's really pretty. Sorry,
I guess
scrolling.
I'm feeling pretty good. As long as everything is going smooth, and I think it is. Got the other juror on. So I think it's a good thing. Hopefully they'll go through the evidence and try to make sense of it. It's the only thing is gonna help me.
I've got hope that they're going to do the right thing. Tell him that he's innocent. I know God is on my side, on his side.
Well, we have 18 people on now. People out enjoying their Friday night or sleeping.
If they find me guilty, it's gonna be hard. I don't see how I can do it like that. That's all I can do. You know, why have my family go through all of this and everything else? You know, I might just get it over with. Take the other way out. You know, I hate to think about it, but I don't feel like doing a lot of good for something I didn't do.
Hello?
Me?
Yeah, hi Doris.
Hi. What's going on yet?
Nothing. We'll know in about half an hour, 45 minutes, how long the jury's going to work tonight.
Cool.
They asked a question earlier, wanting a whole bunch of testimony read back, and the judge said, well, we can't read. They wanted all of Bobby Dassey. And the judge said, well, we can't read all of him back, so just tell us what specifically you want. And we haven't heard back from the jurors.
Oh, yeah?
I'll call you, though, when we know when they're going to quit tonight.
Yeah, okay then, Dean.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Dean's trying to have me in tears this morning. Probably a good thing that he isn't the only defense lawyer in this case, because he'd win it, or come close to swaying people who might be dead set on a guilty verdict, in my opinion. Jerry Buting comes across very abrasive, almost whiny at times.
Your emails about Buting.
Really?
She's got it posted now. This is interesting. The guy scares me. I'm afraid Avery might walk, and I think he is definitely guilty. Do you happen to know what the Averys do during lunch? I am thinking that the people of Chilton might not be too kind to them if they came in the restaurants. Quite the guy try.
What?
Yeah, okay then, Dean. Yeah, okay, sure, okay, bye. They may be getting close to a verdict. He doesn't know, but they're gonna stay. They're having their supper there. They're gonna stay there.
These shots they do are, I think, are really pretty.
Why do you think you're here? Why is he here? Sitting in jail waiting for a verdict.
Well,
I don't know how to answer it. Yeah, that's kind of a tough question.
yeah,
Let me start. Let me try something easier. What has this trial been like for you? What kind of feelings have you had about this trial as it's gone on?
I don't either. There's doubt all over this.
Mostly if they're gonna believe me or not. The judge is gonna be right this time, and like last time. And last time they didn't take them long and they found me guilty. I think about that probably all the time.
The court official has just come into the media room and announced that we do have a verdict. The jury has reached a verdict
One
after
of the
about
hardest
20 plus
parts,
hours of deliberation, and that verdict will be
when they
read
show Stephen's face
at
when the
5:30
verdict is
this
read.
evening. Reporting live in Chilton, Dan O'Donnell, News Radio 620 WTMJ.
Okay, you're 10 minutes away, or? Okay. All right, we'll be outside waiting for you. Okay.
It's so funny seeing all the flip phones.
The room is open, our little room, so as soon as court's done, go to that room if you would. And Jerry and I will get to it as soon as we can with you. We're gonna stop there. It'll be a very few minutes and we're gonna send you home. Okay, and we'll talk later in the week, good or bad. Either way, you know, because there are any questions and follow-ups.
There's Carla again in a hoodie.
Of all three counts, if they say he's innocent, he goes home tonight. And that's one of the reasons we're just gonna spend a few minutes with you, is we gotta get down to see Steve. If he's innocent or not, we gotta go see him. And make sure nobody follows you. home, okay? If Steve is found not guilty, you're gonna have some very angry people in the community, so make sure you're not being followed. If you are, come right back here and go to a state patrol.
My God, she's walking into court in a hoodie. I don't know who the lady is in the red coat.
Members of the jury, the court has been informed
I
that
don't
the
know
jury has
who
reached its
most of
verdicts
those
in this
people were
case.
that
At
went
this
in
time, I will
with
ask
Dolores,
the
other
foreperson
than
to
Carla and her
present the
husband
verdicts
Stacy
to
and
the
Al.
bailiff so that they may be brought forward.
I didn't see Chuck or Earl. Here we go. Oh my God, I hate this.
At this time, the court will read the verdicts. On count 1, the verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Stephen A. Avery, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the first count of the information. On count 2, the verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Stephen A. Avery, not guilty of mutilating a corpse as charged in the second count of the information. On count 3, the verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Stephen Avery, guilty of possession of a firearm as charged in the third count of the information. The verdict on count 1 is signed by the foreperson of the jury, dated today. The other verdicts are also signed by the foreperson of the jury.
How does that not break your heart?
Members of the jury, on behalf of Manitowoc County, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude and appreciation for your service in this case. I recognize that that sacrifice is a necessary part of the price we pay for the judicial system every citizen enjoys. I hope that you found the experience a rewarding one. At this time, you are excused.
Really gets me. It's just so wrong. Yeah, the look on his face just really gets me. Kratz wants to get to the camera.
We're obviously happy with the results. We believe that a just result was reached in this trial. We had a pretty good idea going into this prosecution, the kind of individual that Mr. Avery was. I think that what Mr. Avery did to Teresa Halbach should speak volumes.
There is
as
no
to
proof of what
the
happened
kind
to
of person
Teresa.
that Mr. Avery is, and that's
Even
why I'm very
if
happy
you
that
think
the
he's
citizens
guilty,
of
which
Manitowoc
nobody here
County won't need
should be
to
thinking he's
worry
guilty,
about Mr. Avery being on their streets anymore.
there's no proof of anything.
Okay. Just on a
Anything.
personal note, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the entire prosecution team and thanking all of you for allowing us to to kind of host this trial for you here in Little Calumet County. So with that,
Oh,
everybody, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You think that's some kind of compromise by the jury?
You'd have to ask jurors that,
No,
but
you're right, Alex.
I
Nobody
can't
will ever know.
explain how one would arrive at what clearly seem to be inconsistent verdicts. It's not the first time that's ever happened, though, either.
You talked about this process as potentially being redemptive, and you get a little emotional about it. I mean, now you've been through this process. Was it